And Town Board, you guys are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 15th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilman Lees.
Present.
Councilwoman Oakley.
Here.
Councilman Bradley.
Here.
Supervisor Van Slyke.
Present. Please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's meeting, we have two public hearings followed by a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any matter. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That'll be followed by resolution. But first, we have our town crier, Hugh King, on the line. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, board members. Today's topic will be Sag Harbor. As you all know, Sag Harbor is important for many things, including the St. David's AME Zion Church, which is the oldest church building in the town of East Hampton. They also have the great African-American Sand community, including Azurest and Nineveh. Of course, whaling was important in Sag Harbor after Nantucket and New Bedford. The BB Windmill in Bridgehampton was first built in Sag Harbor. There was a train that went from Bridgehampton to Sag Harbor called the Scoot. It ended in 1939. There were three great fires in Sag Harbor, 1817, 1845, and 1877, which led to the fire company being organized in 1819, one of the first in the United States, and of course is the Great Whalers Church. But today, I'd like to ask each of the board members to investigate an important person from Sag Harbor. Okay, the first one is the most difficult, so Supervisor, the Councilwoman Gonzalez gets the first one, and it's Polly Sweet or Polly Sweat, S-W-E-E-T or S-W-E-T-T. Councilman Lees, Fanny Tunison. Supervisor Van Scoyac, William Wallace Tooker.
Hugh, could you please repeat for David Lees?
Yes.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, it's Fanny Tunison.
Can you
Yes, yeah, T-U-N-I-S-O-N. Tunison. First name, Fanny.
Thank you.
And then supervisor gets William Wallace Tooker. Councilwoman Overby gets Margaret Olivia Slocum. Slocum, S-L-O-C-U-M. Margaret, you know, and Olivia is O-L-I-V-A, or Oliver. Margaret Oliver or Olivia Slocum. And Councilman Bragman gets F-A-H-Y.
Okay, can we try that again?
Yep. Councilman Bragman gets Joseph Fahey, F-A-H-Y.
Joseph Fahey.
I think that's how it's pronounced, Fahey. Okay, so when we meet again, when's the next meeting?
August 5th.
August 5th? In
Yes.
person?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm going to try to be there for that one, all right?
Great.
excellent. It would be great to see you in person, Hugh.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Hugh, before you go, Carol just shared with me that her grandfather was the engineer of the Scoot.
Right, that's how I learned. Me and wrote in for the Independent, writing the historic columns. There is an article all about the Scoot, right, Carol? Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in and say that that little church, the St. David's Church, is really a gem. It's sort of a little bit tucked away, but it's a beautiful little simple building. And also, Sag Harbor has a really lively newspaper history that's very interesting to read about.
Yes, the Long Island Herald was the first newspaper on Long Island, started by David Frothingham. There's also another church in East Hampton that's very, very old. It's St. Matthew's Chapel. Do we know where it is?
Yes, it's at East Hampton Point, I believe.
Right, right. It's still standing. That used to be on 3 Mile Harbor Road. It was the beginning of the Calvary Baptist Church. Okay. Have a good one. We'll see you on the 5th.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
you.
you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
That's it, Loretta. Be well.
Thank you.
Carol, if you'd read the first public hearing notice.
Before you do, Mr. Supervisor, I will be recusing myself from this first public hearing. I own a small stake in a property that joins this potential purchase. I feel like I still could be fair, unbiased on this process, but I think it's best for the town if I recuse myself. I'll come back after.
Thank you, David. Carol, if you please read the hearing notice.
It notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing pursuant to section 247 of the general municipal law and section 64E8 of the town law, of the state of New York, on July 15th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard to consider the following. The town's acquisition for farmland and open space preservation with community preservation funds of vacant property located at 86, 72, 51, and 50 Windmill Lane and 32 Main Street, 275 Montauk Highway, 343 Main Street, 11 Cousins Lane, and 10 Wayne-Scott, reputedly owned by Fireplace Development Corp., Bistrian Land Corp., and Bistrian Farms Corp., and consisting of approximately 15.15 acres of agricultural easement and 17.45 acres of fee simple of vacant land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $28 million plus reasonable survey, title, prorated tax and reporting charges. Said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as, okay. An amendment to the 2021 CPF management and stewardship plan to include said property. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent or by attorney or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, and actually received prior to the date of the public hearing is set forth herein.
Thank you, Carol. We have Scott Wilson with us on the line. Scott, would you like to give us an overview, please?
Sure. Well, I think this group of 9 parcels needs very little introduction, as residents and visitors alike have had the opportunity to appreciate our town's farming heritage each time they pull into the Amagansett parking lot. I'm glad to do so. So at one time in our not too distant past, farmland was actually ubiquitous, but over time, for various reasons, those crops became subdivisions, which became houses. The CPF law indicates that the preservation of farmland is the #1 priority of the CPF law. In fact, it's one of the primary influences behind its creation. And what better time to acknowledge our need for farmland preservation, particularly over the last 2 years, have we seen an influx of new residents with a need for local produce, as well as acknowledging our farmers for so greatly assisting with our food insecurity through our local food pantries. So I'm happy to be here to explain that when an opportunity arose to protect this active farmland with prime agricultural soils and nostalgic views, that the town board over the last 1.5 years creatively pursued and negotiated what I believe is a positive outcome for our community. There are a number of facets to this particular deal, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to cover a few of them, and then obviously if there's questions I can go into more detail. But as it stands today, these are the 9 lots highlighted in blue that, as the farm is right this minute. One of the largest aspects of this deal, granted they're all important, is this plus or minus 17.5 acre portion highlighted in blue is going to be an acquisition in fee by the town. So we will actually own that property outright. And then once owned, we will certainly work with a farmer or farmers to ensure that the property stays in production. This portion highlighted in a darker blue is actually the subject of the agricultural easement. So that means the town will have the opportunity to protect this in perpetuity, but the ownership of the underlying fee will be retained by the family. Now, within this agricultural easement area, there are 2 agricultural structure areas, and we do this on each of our PDR, purchase development right easements, to ensure that we can, maintain the view sheds and see that nostalgic view. So block A there on the bottom, closest to the parking lot, will have up to 1/3 of lot coverage. So that would be barns or hoop houses or a greenhouse the like. In addition, in that Block A, there will be up to 2 farm stands, or at least the footprint of 2 farm stands. And then within Block B, that would be the remainder, 2/3 of what the ag structures could be. And since this is just over 15 acres, that would be just over 13,000 square feet of permanent ag structure coverage. Another aspect of this deal is that the road that or paper road that connects the parking lot to Windmill Lane will be deeded back to the family. And that access will mostly be encumbered by the agricultural easement, so it will remain in row crop production, but will allow for access to Windmill Lane for agricultural purposes, or access to the one remainder lot that the family held, 171-1-2.2. So there were 10 lots. The town is dealing with 9 of those 10 lots. And another aspect of this deal is that the town will be acquiring this 1.25 acre area, which you can see highlighted in black here. And the town will be acquiring that for municipal purposes, for a to be determined use in the future. And let's see, the transaction itself, or the overall transaction, will be in ostensibly 2 phases or over 2 years. The first year will be when the town acquires the 17.5 acres in fee, and in year 2 when the town acquires the agricultural easement, at which time we'll also be acquiring the 1.25 acres. So while there are other details, and again, I'd be glad to cover those if the town board has any questions or the public has any questions, that's pretty much the highlights of the deal. This property meets the highest criteria for preservation within Town Law 64E. So I would ask the board to pass a resolution to acquire.
Thank you, Scott. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak regarding this property?
I just wanted to say that I certainly support the purchase. I don't want to, but so you're saying that some of it's going to be purchased with CPF money, the 17 acres or whatever. Is that correct? Am I speaking to Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, Scott.
Sure, what slide do you want to see?
Okay, where is the parking lot?
If you look at the bump out,
Generally speaking, I understand where we are. Oh, that's the parking.
Whoa.
Wow.
That looks like fun.
Okay, well done.
So, so this area here, you're saying it's going to be purchased with CPF money?
the title, yes.
Okay, so the town is,
The remainder will have the development rights purchased.
right, so the town is going to own that.
Correct.
I just think that's an important aspect. And I have some intimate knowledge of the property, but I'm not going to disclose it this time. Thank you.
David?
Scott, are you still on?
Yes.
No, it's not any better.
Good morning, David Buda. I was going to apologize for being late, but frankly, with almost no audio quality and sound, I didn't miss much because it's nearly impossible to hear what Scott said. Fortunately, I, perhaps unlike anyone else in the town, went to the effort of asking to see the documents. I submitted a FOIL request on June the 22nd, requesting to see the contract. And lo and behold, the contract and the easement arrived this Tuesday evening. However, without the nice pictures, the schedules to the agreement, which arrived 1 hour ago. So I had at least a 1 hour opportunity to try to digest and understand this transaction. So I'm probably better off than most of the people in this room who probably could barely hear Scott speak. There's a lot of good things. It's a monumental acquisition for the town, both in terms of its cost and in terms of its size and location. It's been decades in the making. So there's obviously a lot of good things, and I don't really have a lot of negatives to say now that I've had a chance to read the documents and look at the exhibits and understand what is being done. But I do have a few questions I'd like to throw out for you to consider, or at least consider discussing and perhaps answering. The easiest part of the transaction is the fee purchase portion, which is to the east. My question is, what would be, it looks to me from Google Earth that most of it is actually farmed, perhaps not all of it, but it's currently being farmed. So there is a farm tenant and farm lease in place. So my first question is, what is the town's intentions with respect to the future use of that agriculture property once you obtain fee ownership of the property?
It would to be continued farm production through a process of request for proposals from farmers to farm.
Okay, good. One lot in that fee acquisition, the easternmost lot, it's a 3-acre lot. There's some confusion in the tax map records. The current tax map shows that it's, and this I think is erroneous, shows that it's owned by the Suffolk County Water Authority, and it's apparently not. But at some time in the past, there were transactions between the Bistrians and the Water Authority back and forth, and there may very well be easements on that 3-acre portion. Do you know anything about that? Whether they are currently in existence, whether they impede the future town's plans for that portion of the property, that 3-acre separate tax map lot?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. Now turning to
Scott?
It will be turned into ag production. It's an unimpeded lot.
Unimpeded. Very good, David. There are no easements on it.
unencumbered, I think you mentioned. With respect to the agricultural easement portion, I think it's important, and I think Scott obviously spelled this out in the diagrams better than anything else. One of the lots that has for a long time been expected and intended to be, desired to be acquired by the town for preservation, to acquire property development rights at a minimum, is the westernmost parcel. And it's clear from reading the documents that the sellers have done everything they can to ensure the ability to develop that parcel, although it's currently being farmed. So everyone in Amagansett needs to know that this transaction will likely facilitate, if not encourage, the development of that one last parcel of land to the west, which is currently green space or farmland, and that will take its access from its access and utilities from Windmill Lane. And that currently is not the situation. That's a residential, it is residentially zoned. Do you have any information as to what the future development potential and desires of the sellers are with respect to that one lot that is in the CPF project plan, but it's not included in this transaction?
So you're correct that the owners have held out, I believe it's roughly a 2-acre parcel in the southwest corner of this overall land holding. And as you said, David, it is zoned residential. So, whatever is an acceptable development on a residential property of that size, they would be eligible to pursue.
What's going on? Is there no sound in the room? Is there no audio? I can barely hear you.
Can you not hear?
Barely. Sign says to remember to speak clearly directly into the microphones.
I mean, we're literally like 10 feet apart.
I know.
maybe it's something else. I don't know.
Maybe it is, but you could all use your microphones. There is sound, as Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez confirmed. There is, it's on, but you're not very close to the mic.
So did you not hear what I had to say?
Oh, I heard you. I heard
Okay.
you, but I had to strength.
Thank you. Please continue. We'd like you to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less if possible.
Okay, sure. This transaction took about 20 years to get here. It took about 3 weeks for me to get the documents, and I'll just wrap it up in As soon as I can, lickety-split.
Okay.
The parcel that is to be acquired by the town, that is actually not a CPF transaction, the 1 point some odd acres closest to the parking lot. The documents indicate that a condemnation proceeding, a sort of a pre-planned condemnation proceeding with a pre-agreed price of $100 will have to take place because in the past, these properties were subject to division or redivision without planning board authority, and that. Could you explain why a condemnation proceeding is necessary as opposed to some other straightforward, simpler procedure whereby the town would acquire that portion closest to the parking lot? You also indicate or confirm my suspicion that that's for future potential expansion of the parking lot?
So as you notice, there's a paper road that traverses the property from Windmill Lane to the parking lot in Amagansett, which has been a subject of litigation with the town and the property owner in the past. And essentially, the area of that paper road would be over to the town immediately adjacent to a commensurate amount of property would be attached to the public parking lot. And that the owners would retain that access area from Windmill Lane, roughly the first 450 feet to get to the actual field for access to farm vehicles, et cetera. So it was determined that the easiest way to make that transaction would be through a friendly condemnation process.
And so then the size of that portion is determined by the amount of the paper street that is being
essentially
conveyed back to the sellers.
Essentially, right.
And of course, the documents require that the conveyance of the paper road to the sellers take precedence over all other aspects of the transaction and occur no later than the same time as the first closing, which is to happen by the end of this year with regard to the fee simple purchase portion of the property. So they want that first, and they want that first even before the agricultural easement is secured. And it would seem to me that anything having to do with the right-of-way is really related to the agricultural easement portion of this transaction and shouldn't take precedence or occur prior to the establishment of the agricultural easement over those lands the town is so protecting. So that's my take on that. I think the last thing I want to say is if anyone were to read the reservations in the agreement with respect to potential events or special events, I think they would be surprised that, let me just find it here, that the agricultural easement lands could be used for a multitude of non-agricultural purposes, or if you loosely construe agribusiness, you can say that they are related to potential, related to agricultural uses. But let me just try to find that section here. It includes carnivals and everything but rodeos. Well, let me just ask you to focus in on it. It's here. I'm not sure why I can't find it, but when I read it, it was quite striking in the nature and type of non-agricultural uses that would be permitted on the agriculturally preserved land. And lastly, I note that the agricultural easement is not one that would convey the highest level of development rights, but rather only standard development rights. And there's actually a provision in here that suggests that the town would have to come back later and pay a second fee to acquire additional rights from the owners of that property so as to get what you currently have. And I thought you were now always going to require the form of agricultural easement that mandates the continuous use of all the property for agricultural uses. That's not the type of easement that this is, to my understanding. And the documents make clear that only standard development rights or basic development rights are being conveyed by way of the agricultural easement for what, $12 million, and that there are other development rights that you are not seeking and that will not be conveyed to the town as part of the, or protected by way of the agricultural easement. So I'm wondering why this is not the highest and best type of agricultural easement form that the town currently uses.
Well, I would say that it's not just the simplest and most standard either, David, as you said. There's been a lot of discussion between the property owners and the town board about those development rights, and there are certain exclusions over much of the property. There's been a requirement that certain activities only occur within various areas, as shown previously by Mr. Wilson's overview. Area A and Area B, for instance. So there's no tree farm in the front. There's no obstruction of vistas off the parking lot. There are a number of restrictions. And as far as affirmative farming, it is not the highest level of development rights that we've discussed here. It allows the property owner to have a little more flexibility about how they farm the property, but it's certainly not the simplest of development right purchases.
Right. The terminology used is standard development rights as opposed to the higher level of enhanced development rights, and with additional development limitations being can be sold in the future. I did find the language concerning the events. I just want to read that. Special events, section 3.04. This is in the ag easement. They would be permitted to have to conduct on a one-time or occasional basis special events that include but are not limited to carnivals, circuses, fairs, bazaars, or outdoor shows, concerts, road rallies, and parades, but only to the extent said events are otherwise considered as an allowable use by the town code, as the same shall be amended from time to time, and is further set forth in another section, which is basically, I read to me, with a special event permit.
And they're eligible for special events on the property now.
Okay, those are the only comments that I have. I do hope that you give what I said some thought, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Anyone else wish to speak regarding this public hearing?
No, motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry. Carol, if you please go on to the next public hearing notice.
Take notice of the public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held on July 15th at 11 a.m. on a proposed local law amending chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code in Article 12 thereof, the use district zoning map, in order to change the use district zoning classification of certain lands located on Panago Road from A5 residence to A5 residence with affordable housing overlay district, all is more fully set forth in the text of the local law.
Carol, this is a continuation of the previous public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this matter? Yes. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Filer, F-I-L-E-R. I'm here on behalf of my law firm, which is Whalen Filer at 532 Montauk Highway, and at the outset. Good morning, everyone. I represent the Spring Close Neighborhood Association, which is a group of small group of residents of Spring Close Lane, which is off of Spring Close Highway. A couple of the residents are here with me this morning in the front row. and second row, and they may choose to speak as well. These folks all own houses on Spring Close Lane, which is, they all adjoin the now town-owned property at 395 Panago Road. And these neighbors offer their qualified support for the affordable housing overlay decision. I say qualified because they do ask for certain conditions based on that support. I think we all recognize the urgent need for affordable housing in this community. So I won't speak further on that, but these folks in most cases have owned these houses for years, and it's a modest private road, modest neighborhood, quiet neighborhood. And if you turn into Spring Close Highway just by the bank there, their little street is up on the right between the bank and where the road makes the big turn by the Bistrian land. So I think first and foremost is we'd like to see, assuming the affordable housing goes forward, we'd like to see that housing development on the south end of the property. So the end of the property closest to Panago Road or Montauk Highway. The current sketch, which has been provided in the planning memo, shows the opposite. Of course, there's an open space element to this, which we're aware of, which is great. We'd like to see the open space to the north and the housing development to the south. And there's several, I think, very good reasons for this, some of which have been provided in the town's own planning memo. But first and foremost, the location of the affordable housing to the south will have the least detrimental effect on these folks and their houses at Spring Close Lane. The placement of the houses to the south, other than being better for, in addition to being good for their neighborhood, is that the residents of the eventual residents of the affordable housing will actually have closer access to the services on Panago Road there, which is one of the things that Eric Chance talks about in his planning memo, that when you decide where affordable housing should be, you want folks to be able to walk to things, walk to public transportation. There's a bus stop there, walk to, in this case, there's some takeout restaurants, there's a little grocery, there's the insurance company, there's Jacques Frenny's wine shop. I mean, all this suggests that these residents could use those services, get to those services without a car the further south that they are. In addition, the property becomes more elevated as you move north. So going from Panago Road to the north towards the back towards the Bistrian property, the property sort of goes upward, and that kind of suggests that the open space should be back in the back where it's a bit more elevated. And I know there's also talk of a recreational area in that open space portion, and again, that should be to the north, not to the south. So we're actually just sort of asking that you flip the current layout from housing in the back to housing in the front, and open space in the back. In addition, our clients prefer that any affordable housing development be single-family houses as opposed to a multi-unit complex. And I'll just note that your committee, I think they call it COP, that's the Community Housing Opportunity Fund Committee. Right. Yes, their memo states specifically that their consensus was single-family housing. So I think we're just, our thoughts are consistent with that. And clearly it's more in keeping with the neighborhood. We want these houses to, we want affordable housing, but we want them to blend in. So the other thing I'll just mention is that I've had some discussion with the neighbors. Andrew Strong, my colleague who represents Mr. Bistrian, and I know they've made a submission to you all. They'd like to see the housing to the front as well. I know Mr. Bistrian has offered some type of trail easement that would then connect with the recreational portion of this property if you put it to the north. So it kind of makes sense that way as well. I've also talked to a representative of the Panago Hill subdivision, which is subdivision to the east. And their representative also echoed that, you know, if there's affordable housing, you know, we prefer to see it in the front and the recreational area in the back. Importantly, I think, and this is, I guess, a question for the board, is will this project be subject to planning board review, subject to planning board process? Okay, I'm seeing head shaking in the affirmative. That's great. I mean, obviously, these people want to be part of any comments, not just comment, but you know, decision making about what things look like. And one of our clients is a architect and designer, and you know, she has opinions and is willing to help out and so forth. So that's sort of where we are. And you know, I'll let either Conrad or Lorraine speak if you'd like to. Any questions before I sit down? Any questions for me? I'm glad to try to limit my time.
I don't have a question. I just, this is my own opinion. I'm not speaking for the board. But I don't think we want to, or I would feel more comfortable in having a really big buffer between the highway and the development itself. I don't know what that size is going to be yet.
Right.
And that's why we put the affordable housing overlay over the entire property instead of just the section of 7 acres. And part of that is for suburban sprawl, because once we start making an endless run of development between the village and Amagansett, which is the next one, we can't tell the difference between who and what they are.
Right.
So we need to make sure that suburban sprawl is not part of the process. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't talked this over. I've mentioned it at work sessions, but I'm really would feel that we need a big buffer there before. And you mentioned all the stores that are around there, all the places they can walk to.
Right.
This is to help defray that look of we're just one continuous development.
And I think you make a good point. And luckily the property's quite large, and I'm hopeful that there could be a really attractive buffer. You know, it's all wooded now, but I would think that there could be a buffer out front, so it just doesn't look like, you know, go from woods to sprawl. And hopefully the architecture is such that it will be attractive and blend in. So I mean, I think there can be some sort of buffer out front along that area just past, you know, you've got the bank and there's a little house there, and then some sort of wooded buffer out front, and then you get to the houses just behind that, and then a nice large recreation area beyond. So, yeah. Anything else for me, or?
We did receive your submission.
Oh, okay. You got the letter from this
I
morning?
think we got it twice.
Well, yeah, one wasn't formatted so nicely. And thank you, Carol. I sent the letter this morning, so if you need copies, I've got them. Thanks.
We have it. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Conrad, else wish to speak?
Sure. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Lorraine Bonaventura. We live on Spring Close Lane at 6 Spring Close Lane. And as you know, I've submitted written comments to the board before, and beginning in March, I contacted all of our neighbors who have also submitted written comments, and they're all pretty much in agreement that they would really like to see the housing, if it goes ahead, along the southern border and on the northern border of the northern section of the property, because it will really affect all of our properties, which not just our properties on Spring Close Lane, but all the property owners along Spring Close Highway, their backyards come up to the property also, and north of us and south of us. So I'm sensitive, because we spoke before, to your idea of dividing the preserved open space, but I would say that where Spring Close Lane ends, it's about 3 acres south of the northern border of the 12 acres. And if we really divide it, then, and the housing ends up in the middle, then it's still right next to all of our properties adjacent. So in the planning process, which we hope that we can really participate in, not just comment on after it's completed, that there's consideration to all of the residential properties and the owners. It's a really quiet, wooded neighborhood. We'd like to try to keep it that way. Whatever development there is, we'd like to see it have, as we said, single family residences and not condos or apartments, but also consideration to the dark sky, low level lighting, all kinds of things that will interfere with not just our woods, but also the habitat and the animal habitat, the woodland habitat. So we would also like you to consider a wooded buffer being retained all along the western border of the 12 acres that adjoins all of the properties. I mean, I think that would go a long way towards keeping the wooded feeling that is there now if you ever were to walk the property yourselves or even walk the lane. You would understand pretty much what we look at now are woods, which would, it's a very modest neighborhood. The house that we have was built 70 years ago by my grandparents. Nothing's really changed in those 70 years. So we understand the need for affordable housing. We know that there are competing interests. We just ask that you consider all of our issues going forward and include us in the planning process. And lastly, I would say that we hope that there'll be an environmental study going forward that's thorough. I don't know. I know what kinds of animal habitat there are. I don't know what other things might be on the site because it is a pretty, old growth. Some of the oak and hickory on the property. I do think that since we just talked about and heard about preserving farmland, I think it's equally important to consider woodlands as part of what needs to be preserved in the town. And lastly, we hope that you can assure us that the access will be from Montauk Highway and not in any way from Spring Close Highway or Spring Close Lane, except if there ends up being an easement to the open space. And I guess I'm interested to know what thoughts the town has about what the 5 acres of open space now might become in the future. Our hope is that it just remains wooded and passive. I think that's it.
So much, Lori.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes, Conrad. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Conrad Simon, number 8, Spring Close Lane. I've owned my house for 11 years, and I support the comments of Mr. Filer and Ms. Bonaventura. I purchased my house after just being totally charmed by driving down Spring Close Lane and up my long lane and seeing this cute cottage. So it's very important for me to retain the rural character of our neighborhood. I strongly support individual cottages to be developed. My fear is big parking lots, street lights, and those sorts of things, which is not in keeping with our neighborhood and really the wider neighborhood. It's all small cottages everywhere. My house abuts the 395 Pendigo, and it's very close. And unfortunately, my driveway is probably within 3 feet of the property line. And so there isn't really a possibility of me to build my own buffer. And there's a part of my driveway near my house where there are no trees. And in the wintertime, I can see the swimming pool of the current property, of the 395 property. So I would ask that a buffer be built there, especially if there's going to be, lights and a lot of houses and so forth. So that's all I have to say. Just wanted to introduce myself, and I think that affordable housing is very important, and I certainly would expect that someday that land would have been developed. So I just hope that it's developed in a thoughtful way, and I look forward to the full process. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to address the board on this topic? Do we have anybody on the phone, Jody, who would want
Yes,
to
we
address this?
do. Let me patch them through.
Thank you very much.
Caller, you're on the line.
Just listening. It's not coming over the TV.
Okay, so you just listen. We have any other callers who wish to address the current?
No other callers
No.
on the line.
Anyone, second chance, anyone here?
A motion to close.
Second. Also, that we have with housing and that you support the idea of affordable housing. And we look forward to working with you to address your valid concerns.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There apparently is some problem with the audio portion of the meeting, just to advise.
I think we've resolved that now. But please continue.
I will. Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, my name is Michael Angelo. I'm a resident of East Hampton. I'm an attorney, and I'm appearing here today on behalf of my client, Corey's Wave LLC. My client holds a permit from the town to provide surfing lessons to the public at Ditch Plain Beach, and that is the matter I wish to address today. First, some background on my client and its principals, Corey and Kristen Sinise. Corey's Wave has been providing surf lessons for town of East Hampton for 13 years. Corey's Wave is a member of the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, and Kristen Sinise is a member of the board of directors of the East Hampton YMCA. The company participates with a Walk on Water, a travel organization that provides handicapped and disadvantaged youngsters and adults with the experience of surfing, a proven therapeutic activity. Prior to the COVID epidemic, the company provided surf lessons to school children from the Montauk Public School and worked with members of the Montauk PTA to teach children about the many benefits of surfing and the importance of personal health as well as a healthy environment. The company participates in numerous local events and supports the Concerts on the Green program put on by the Montauk Chamber of Commerce. Corey's Wave has been a part of Montauk for more than a dozen years, and the company provides employment for a large number of local residents. In December 2020, as the country and the town of East Hampton struggled to escape the hold of coronavirus, an email from a disgruntled resident of Ditch Plain raising a number of false, misguided, and malicious charges against my client was forwarded to Councilman Bert Gonzalez. This email lumped all surfing lesson operators in Montauk together as though they were one single entity and attributed any problem on the beach to the Corey Wave organization. The writer, a recent arrival in Montauk, alleges that they spoke with, quote, many surfers and locals, end quote, and that we had come up with a list of 9 complaints against the Corey Wave Surf School, which the writer was apparently authorized to present to the town of East Hampton on behalf of all those to whom he or she had allegedly spoken to about the issue. It wasn't until early March of this year, shortly after my client had filed his application for a special use permit, as it had done for more than a decade, that the email was forwarded to Corey's Wave and shared with several members of the Special Events Permit Committee and other employees and officials of the town. Under most scenarios, with serious concerns being falsely leveled at a long-standing local women-owned business, one would expect that the local governing body would look into the matter to evaluate the veracity of the charges being made. In this case, however, the Special Events Committee seems to have accepted the truth of our charges without question. With only 4 days' notice, my client was summoned to participate in a Zoom call with the committee to discuss how we move forward for the 2021 season. Rather than engaging my client in a discussion of the problems raised by the email and the often implausible solutions raised in it, Corey's Wave was informed by the committee members of what it would allow the company in terms of its permitted business, and Corey's Wave was informed by the committee members of what they would allow the company to do. Fashioning a draconian solution to a problem that did not exist, the committee reduced the permitted hours of operation by 50%, from 12 hours a day down to 6 hours, and permitted clientele reduced from 15 to 5, which I believe is a reduction of 60%. Other limitations were also imposed on my client based upon the suspect assertions contained in this email. In response to the allegations contained in this email complaint, what investigation did the committee undertake? The email was written in December when only the hardest, most dedicated surfers were in the water. Far cry from the situation presented during the height of the summer when the lineup in the surf is the most crowded. A long-standing reality that has nothing to do with the business of my client and which has existed for nearly 2 decades. Who did the committee interview? What was the basis of its analysis that led to the wholesale evisceration of my client's business and the inability for his way to maintain its staff at a time when restarting the economy was one of the highest national priorities? It should have been the duty of the committee to closely investigate charges made against the model of local business. Instead, the committee took these allegations as gospel and acted accordingly. A process based upon false assertions can never produce a proper result, and that is what has occurred here. The process was unfair and delivered a serious financial blow to the established local business without any demonstrable evidence to support the conclusions reached by the committee. Did any member of the committee speak with the writer of the email or anyone else with sufficient experience to render valuable advice? I don't know, but I feel the answer to those questions would be a no. Since I'm extremely limited in my time today, I would direct members of the board to the emails in June and July to Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez and the board from Tracy Early and Jay Levine, 2 strong supporters of Corey's Way. Their emails clearly and effectively lay out the shortcomings of the harsh result affected by the board in a much more detailed and nuanced fashion than I could ever provide. The board should revisit these emails and many others sent to the town in support of Corey's Way. In a classic catch-22 scenario, when one member of the board requested proof of the support for Corey's Way of its clients and other concerned local voices, another member diminished the effort as an orchestration by Corey's Way. Seriously, what business, when threatened with such a situation, wouldn't do whatever it could to marshal support for its continued existence? Is there something wrong with that course of action? We're not exactly sure how many people contacted the town, but we believe that more than 60 of our supporters sent emails or letters to the town board expressing their displeasure with what has occurred in regard to this issue. As to what's going on to the beach right now, a simple Google search reveals 8 or 9 providers of commercial surfing lessons in the town of East Hampton. To the best of our knowledge, the committee has issued only 3 permits for surfing lessons. What about the other 75% of the operators? Do they use Red Cross and town certified lifeguards? Do they have insurance? Do they identify their clients' instructors as my client does? Do they get to play by a different set of rules with minimal supervision? Is the playing field level for all surf lesson providers? In closing, we request immediate action by the board to extend the daily time period for surfing lessons to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to allow an increase in the number of clients from 5 participants to 10, allowing 2-to-1 instructor-student ratios as opposed to the existing 1-to-1 ratio, and other relief is outlined in the original application for a special events permit as filed by Corey's Wave in March 2021. In the absence of such action by the board, we request this matter be included on the agenda of the board at its next meeting and provide for a public hearing to discuss the issue presented here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I'm going to wait to hear from you. I'm going to further this with a brief email that I'll send to all members of the board later today. Right. Any questions?
No.
No? No action by the permit committee last night on this situation? No? All right, well, thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, David.
Good morning again. I was asked to act as a messenger. My wife has a copy of a letter and a petition to all of you concerning the Springs Park. I'd like to just deliver to you. Not for now, but for later. Consideration and discussion, whatever. In a nutshell, I understand that she is supporting, she and numerous people who signed the petition, supporting the creation of a small dog park on condition that it be outside of the limits, the existing fence limits of the Springs Park, within the 20 other acres that are part of the CPF property. So she's certainly not opposing a small dog park. She's encouraging it, but it needs to be outside of the existing park, so it does not involve any clearing of existing woodlands, etc. The second matter that I'd like to discuss with you, I see that you have put on the agenda for consideration and hopefully active discussion, 2 resolutions concerning the proposed Walker and Graziano CPF acquisition. Those are the properties at 24 and 28 and 20 Broadview Road. I don't want to repeat anything I said previously. I submitted it a lengthy written submission. I spoke at the public hearing. This is not a public hearing, but since you're going to be discussing it today, and you have not before taken advantage of the opportunity to possibly discuss this in a work session, and it's on the agenda, and I don't know what you will say or do today. I just want to make some pointed remarks. Mr. Supervisor, during the meeting Tuesday, this was Tuesday, I believe, when you were considering the adoption of management plan for properties, the Golden Dart property in Amagansett, you mentioned something obliquely that I thought touched on the issue of these properties. I would like to make clear that it's my understanding that the subject properties are in no way on top of the Stony Hill aquifer. In fact, I will provide you now with a copy of the Special Groundwater Protection Area, South Fork Critical Environmental Area, map number 6.
David, if I could just interrupt for a moment. I don't quite understand the connection you're making between Stony Hill Aquifer and Walker. I made no comments about Stony Hill Aquifer on Tuesday.
Okay, maybe I was just reading between the lines and came up with the wrong answer, but there was a mention of the need for protecting and CPF buying properties in the Bell Estate, and this is part of the Bell Estate, a different section, section 2, section 3, and that's why I thought perhaps you were suggesting that this had benefits, this proposed acquisition would have benefits for water protection, groundwater protection, and I just want to eliminate any possibility of that, if that's what you were thinking.
I was referring to the environmental impacts. It's at Gold Dart, I believe you urged the town board not to purchase that property because it contained a residence. And that particular property, once the residence removed, we had our first woodland nesting bald eagles on that exact site. And, they've now raised 2 clutches of chicks. And I feel personally that the Walker property, representing 50% of the remaining undeveloped coastal bluffs in Amagansett, would in fact maybe attract future nesting of bald eagles and other wildlife that is diminishing all over the East End. So that was my interest in those properties.
Right. So I think
David, I think there's another piece of property in the Bell Estate that we are purchasing on partitions also for 4 years, and that may be the other property that was being discussed by the presenter at that time, not this property that you're discussing. There's another one in that location of Bell Estate.
All right, I'll get off the past and just deal with what you're doing today. These properties, there's one other red herring or misnomer that I'd like to correct. The Walker properties, numbers 24 and 28, are not contiguous to any other property that is Greenland or preserved other than the property owner association beachfront property, which is a separate parcel about 60 to 90 feet below the subject property. There is a road, the Graziano family owns and builds a house on number 22 Broadview Road, and they have an access road. It's actually a flag lot road built that separates 24 and 28 from number 20. Next thing I'd like to just mention, make sure that you understand that number 20 Broadview Road has never been reviewed by the town planning department or the town CPF advisory board, because it was never part of the original consideration of the acquisition. That's a property that is much lower, and I believe is, and I know has existing scenic easements on it and has some wetlands and would be of extremely difficult development potential. So I'd like you to keep that in mind, and with regard, Mr. Supervisor, to your comment about remaining bluffs, we should all remember that the Walker property was encumbered with a 150-foot scenic and conservation easement when it was subdivided and created. That's land that cannot be disturbed, regardless of whether it's developed. It cannot be cleared. Therefore, there's no opportunity for the town to possibly consider a clearing for scenic vista. And it's just woodlands that's already protected. The remaining one buildable lot, number 24 and 28, have been merged by law, by deed. One buildable lot is only about half of the 3.5 acres. The rest is totally, fully preserved, provided the town knows how to enforce and does enforce its existing conservation and scenic easements. And that's all I have to say. I hope that you will discuss the issues I've raised when the time comes to consider the resolutions that you put on the agenda.
Thank you, David. Anyone else who should address the board at this time? Okay, we'll move on to resolutions. Do we have any callers on the line?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, just.
Yes, we do have one caller on the line.
Charlie, you are signed up. I apologize. Please, if you wish to.
Caller, you're on the line.
Yes. Yes. Hey, my name's Tim Garneau, and I'm calling about. Hey, good afternoon.
Sorry. Can we just hold on a minute? I'm sorry, we went out of order. I have Charlie Whitmore here who'd like to make some comments.
Sorry about that.
We'll go to the caller right after these comments.
Hi, I'm Charlie Whitmore. I've been involved in recreation in the town of East Hampton for well over almost 50 years. I was the chairperson on the recreation committee.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
For the East End Town Comprehensive Plan that was issued, I believe in 2005. I believe that's the last document you have regarding recreation, as it seems that you have, of course, lost the needs assessment study. We worked off the needs assessment study to create this document that can be found in the recommendations to the comprehensive plan. So this is the book, and if you look through it, I would like to read you one passage from the beginning here, if I may. It says, this is the Town Comprehensive Committee. To provide a variety of opportunities to capitalize on its remarkable resources and unique characteristics, East Hampton must create a vision of the future of park and recreation services. It's very important to speak about that, because having a vision for parks and recreation in the town of East Hampton, other than what's in here, nothing has ever been developed further than this document, to my knowledge. With that, I would like to speak. I'd like to read an editorial from the East Hampton Star in June. Still hope for the Pandago ball fields. The East Hampton Town Board is picking on kids. It is not intentional, to be sure, but in sticking with the idea of allowing an emergency light medical facility to replace a pair of side-by-side baseball diamonds and offering an insufficient replacement near the far western edge of the town, it sure looks that way. There was a time that parkland like this, like the two ball fields off Pantago Road, was sacred. And in fact, it is. The suggestion that new fields be laid out on a large piece of community preservation fund purchased land in Amagansett was on absolute reserve for strictly limited uses such as walking or farming. At the moment, you will see folks running their dogs there or flying drones and model aircraft. But at the same time, the board has thought it fine to allow the East Hampton Library to host its Authors Night benefit there. But kids playing ball in the spring? Oh, heavens no. Another potential location for the displaced Little League standard fields is at a town sports site off Stephen Hans Path in what we suppose should be called the Greater Wainscott area. Montauk parents and coaches are not enthusiastic about having to play away games that are far from home, and we get it. While the season for the games begins early in spring, the finals are in mid-June, right about when it starts to take twice as long to get anywhere by car. Players generally gather for games on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at about 4:30 p.m. to warm up before a 5:30 start. We can't imagine that the town board really means to jam parents and spectators into the westbound afternoon trade parade. As it is, there is scarcely time after school for players to gulp down a glass of orange juice and change into uniforms, find their bats and mitts, and get to the more centrally located fields. Teams are fielded to represent Montauk, Amagansett, Springs, and East Hampton. Wainscott has yet to be represented, though there is no reason not to put additional ball fields there. What makes the loss of the well-situated location at Pantago so infuriating is that alternative sites exist. Some have suggested the former Stearns department store property just to the east of the existing site. And there could be an alternative right next door behind East Hampton Town Hall. Exploring behind the Justice Court, one discovers a jumble of garages, asphalt, and utility buildings. There are park sanitation department trucks, police vehicles, piles of dumped topsoil, various things awaiting an auction or disposal. In short, a mess. And a site that should have another look for the medical facility. Forethought seems never applied back here, nor the question answered of whether the equipment and offices could be moved elsewhere. For example, to the former Child Development Center of the Hampton School, recently used as a COVID-19 vaccination center. But that would be too far to travel. Town employees might protest, yet it is okay to ask Little League parents, supporters, and coaches to go out of their way. As far as sports and recreation go, there is the overarching issue of a town board willing to reduce the number of recreational sites. Common sense should have informed them that this was a bad precedent and that we need more facilities, not fewer, and more centrally located to where their users actually live. It is on paper, too. In official planning reports adopted by previous town boards, calling for additional parks, play areas, and open space for less active pursuits. A medical center may well be needed, but it is frankly a shock that the current town board would be so willing to offer up such a prime and well-loved location. And it did so without subjecting the plan to strict environmental review. And then there is the lingering objection concerning parkland alienation, which the town quietly received for the property in late 2019. Under New York state law, selling or changing the use, even temporarily and with an intention to restore the site someday, requires legislative approval and the signature of the governor. In short, the use of parkland by a municipality for a non-park purpose is considered an alienation, even if the use has public benefit or purpose, as in a medical center. Past alienations have drawn the attention of the state comptroller's office on the lookout for abuse, and citizens have the right to sue a municipality when they think that the process is improper. Town officials and Stony Brook Hospital, which hopes to construct what has been described as an emergency room annex, are missing the point in still changing and charging ahead with the plan. Parks must remain parks, and as it grows and becomes more of a year-round community, East Hampton needs more of them, not fewer. Save the fields, put the annex elsewhere, and everybody will be happier in the long run.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments, Ed. I certainly strongly object to this move. I think the town, we reviewed some properties today, your CPF fund properties. The idea that you can't find 4 acres centrally located for the children of this community is frankly shocking. And I know, I've been involved in this issue for over a year now. And every day I wake up, this is a bad deal. And I know you sitting there know it. The idea that you can't do anything for these children east of here, and you're sending them on the other side of town. Waynescott doesn't even have a team. And I want to point one other thing out. Recently, last season, I looked at the spring school, and I looked at their budget for the new project they did over there. Have you been over there? When? Last
week.
Last week?
Me.
Did you see what they've done?
My 3 kids go there, Charlie.
Huh?
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
It is outstanding what they've done for that recreation facility. And did you see how much they spent on it? Honestly, I'm embarrassed to say it, but you know what was on their budget line? $75,000. I know they started it for extra money. It is outstanding. The people that did Land Tech and BBS Architects, you have to go see it. It's amazing. I mean, it's the best work I've seen in this town. And it shows. These people are good.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Go back to the phones. Joe, do you have a caller on the line?
Yes, we have one caller on the line. Let me patch them through. Caller, you're on the line.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Tim Garneau calling in support for the move of the Panago Fields to the Stephen Hands Path location. I just recently completed 11 years on the Little League board as a coach and as a board member. Very involved with all aspects of Little League, current Little League. The Panago Fields, as they exist now, definitely need an upgrade. And what is being proposed are 2 state-of-the-art fields built by Land Tech. That they've been doing fields up island for the last 20 years. Right now, the engineers have basically told us that 95% of the new fields are all artificial turfs. What we're going to be getting is significantly better than what's there. And as far as location goes, my kids, I have 3 kids that played 6 years of town soccer. That's spring and fall. And we never even thought once or twice about driving to Stephen Hands Path. And nor did anyone else. I mean, if you go there on a Saturday, it's packed. And there's people from all over the town. And so, I don't see, and also currently There's 83 players in the league that are playing travel ball, which is done up island. So they spend plenty, hours going to games each way. And so I don't see an extra 8 or 10 minutes being a huge inconvenience. I kind of think this is a little dramatized, and I think it's actually off base and wrong to think that this is going to be a bad move. And I'm fully in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any other callers on the line, Jody?
There's no other callers on the line.
At this point, we can move on to resolutions. Kathy, you have resolutions, sorry.
I do, starting with resolution 2021-815. It's approval of the warrant. Claims total $1,408,288.80. And the utility warrant total $67,319.40.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
816 is to increase hours for full-time employee Selena Cease. Selena is currently a 35-hour work week, and we need her at a 40-hour work week with no change in hourly rate or budget account, effective retroactive to July 12th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
2021-817 is a payout upon retirement for Jean Hamilton, who we believe served 38 years with the town. And her audited time records indicate that she's accrued vacation time balance of 1,565 hours, accrued compensatory time of 227.5 hours, and accrued sick time, including personnel, of 2,305 hours. So the finance office is authorized to issue a check through payroll for vacation time, sick time, and compensatory time for a gross total of $202,652.74. And a portion of this final payout, $158,800, will be scheduled for payroll number 15, which is on 7/23, and the remaining balance of $51,852.74 will be scheduled in the first payroll in January of 2022.
Second, and your presence is missed.
No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. And yes, Jean, best of luck to you in your retirement. Congratulations. I think 38 years of service for the town really has made a difference, so thank you.
2021-818 is to accept bid EH21-028 food service and kitchenware items. And this is going to Interboro Packaging Corp., Middle of Foods of New York, Sam Tell & Son, Inc., and Douglas Equipment, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
2021-819 is to authorize payment to the Montauk Community Nutrition Program of $15,000. I'd spoken about this in my liaison report on Tuesday. They get an annual yearly grant of $120,000 that's usually paid after the quarter, but because they're restarting their program after COVID, we are looking to forward $15,000 of that grant funding.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
Resolution 820 is the approval of various special event permits. The National Psoriasis Foundation, a fundraiser and bike ride through the Hamptons, various town roads, Saturday, September 25th, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Montauk Film Festival, and that's over multiple nights at various locations. The Special Event Committee actually met with Jason Ferrante yesterday to get a better understanding of the event. So it's at Soleil East from Sunday, July 25th through Wednesday, July 28th from 7 to 10. It's also from Monday to Wednesday, it's at the Montauk Beach House and Talk. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it'll be at the Hero Beach Club and Second House Museum. And then lastly, the East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue is looking to have their Red Devil Swim at the Atlantic Avenue Beach, Saturday, September 4th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
Resolution 821 is to authorize an increase in the road improvement district costs for Pheasant Woods Lane. If you recall, we had a public hearing back on July 18th of 2019. Costs went up in the interim. We had a second public hearing on July 1st, 2021. And so we are, I'm offering this resolution, which is subject to permissive referendum, authorizing the increase in costs for the road improvement district for Pheasant Woods Lane from the initial estimate of $45,900 to $150,000.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 822 is a memorializing resolution in support of modernizing the Older Americans Act and increasing the federal government's investments in senior services. And I'd like to read it, please. Whereas the Older Americans Act was signed into law on July 14, 1965, in response to concerns by policymakers about the lack of community social services for older persons. And whereas the original legislation established the Administration on Aging within the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare with the authority to administer newly created grant programs to states for community planning and social services. And whereas the COVID-19 public health emergency has exposed the Older Americans Act as one that is outdated and in need of modernization in policy and program, and in need to keep up with the growth of the older population. And whereas the pandemic forced the closure of congregate sites, social adult daycare programs, and other community sites where older adults would receive services, nutrition, evidence-based programs, application and assistance support, caregiver and respite, information and assistance, and much more. And whereas the network of aging services providers had to retool and change their method of service delivery virtually overnight and to provide services in a different way, such as the use of technology, more services in the home, delivering groceries and supplies, expanding home delivered meals, combating social isolation, delivering prescriptions, and more. And whereas both the Federal Emergency Disaster Declaration and New York State's executive orders gave the network maximum flexibility to meet needs as they arose, and to do so based on the unique needs in each community without having a bureaucracy pushback, all while accounting for funding, documenting who was served and how, and maintaining quality. And whereas this flexibility needs to be continued permanently. And whereas New York State saw an increase in service demand of almost 75%, including older adults that had never received services prior to the pandemic. And whereas the need for these services has not waived, and maintaining this level of service is important to meet basic needs and to help meet our mission of helping older adults maintain their independence with dignity. And whereas there needs to be a major investment from the federal government to keep pace with need, complexity of care, and emerging challenges, in addition to modernizing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of East Hampton supports modernizing the Older Americans Act to provide the flexibilities to meet local priorities and needs that differ geographically and differ in cost, to make investments in programs and services that have been added to New York State's portfolios through numerous amendments but have not been supported with federal funding, and to build back better with the lessons learned from COVID. And be it further resolved that the town of East Hampton supports New York State Office for the Aging, working with states and counties across the nation to modernize the Older Adults Act and increase the antiquated and outdated parts of the Act, to learn from and address service delivery after the pandemic, and to position us moving forward with increased flexibility and the resources that bring us into the 21st century, and it can address any new or emerging issues that are currently unforeseen. And be it further resolved that the town of East Hampton supports New York State's Office for the Aging's request of an overall increase in the Older Americans Act of $2.7 billion by the federal government, with a state share of the national amount for New York being 6.5%. That would bring $175.5 million to New York State. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to send a copy of this resolution to Senator Kristen Gillibrand and Greg Olson, Director of the New York State Office for the Aging.
Well said, and second.
Can we have just a minute discussion, a small item here? I think in the last paragraph on the first page, there's a mistake. I think if I read it correctly, the paragraph is probably intended to say the need for these services has not waned, meaning they haven't diminished. I think
yes.
Or wavered,
but diminished would be clearer. So
I think you meant wavered, not waived.
Yes.
Second is amended.
Change the D to R.
Is that all?
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-823 is appoint seasonal lifeguards for July 2021. The following employees are hereby appointed as seasonal lifeguards effective July 16th, 2021. Brooke Bistrian, Rock Cassane, Ramis Steininger, Kylie McCabe, Teresa Sharippa at the salaries appointed, mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-824 is to appoint volunteers to town's shellfish hatchery, aquaculture department, Patrick O'Donnell, Gwen O'Donnell, and Kieran O'Donnell, retroactive to July 1st, 2021.
Are they all siblings?
Patrick and Kieran are, and they actually are former winners of the largest clamp also.
Perfect. Second.
So they're qualified. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
Resolution 2021-825 is to appoint student interim 2 at the aquaculture department by a judge, hourly rate of $16 per hour, retroactive to July 11th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
826 is to appoint seasonal custodian in the Parks Department, Rocky Moore, Sir Mayanam, I apologize, the hourly rate of $22 per hour, retroactive to May 17th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
2021-827 is to appoint part-time environmental aid in the aquaculture department, Christopher Lianza, an hourly rate of $20.15 per hour, effective July 19th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
2021-828 is to regrade at groundskeeper 1 and 2 titles and amended to Schedule A. It's hereby amended to reflect groundskeeper 1 will be regraded to grade 14 and groundskeeper 2 title will be regraded to grade 16 on the CSEA Schedule A effective July 18, 2021. And the following full-time employees will be at the grade set listed below: Mauricio Bajomanes, grade 14, state 5, hourly rate $21.35. And Jeffrey Bryan, grade 16, step 5, hourly rate $20.36.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
Resolution 2021-829 is to change title for part-time laborer to groundskeeper 1 and an increase in hourly rate. Where the Parks Department has determined that part-time and seasonal laborers are needed for maintenance of parks, beaches, and other surrounding areas of the towns, including garbage receptacles. The following part-time laborers in the Parks Department will now have the title groundskeeper 1 at an hourly rate of $21 per hour, with no change to budget account effective July 18, 2021. Charlie Barter, Cody Azubek, Kevin Cardona, Elliot Dunn, Anthony Ricci, and Gabriela Vargas. And let it be further that part-time groundskeeper 1, Charles Ricci, will be paid an hourly rate of $21 effective July 18, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
830 is a budget modification for beaches, bringing $550 from other equipment to office expense.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, pass and carry.
831 is a 2021 budget modification for municipal and housing purposes. We're bringing from unappropriate unreserved surplus in the amount of $50,000 to land acquisition in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
Resolution 2021-832 is the Walker Graziano. This is to authorize the CPS project plan addition, where we had a town board public hearing on this on June 17, 2021, 11 a.m. The Suffolk County tax map with these parcels to add to the plan. Project plan would be tax map 300-104-2-25, 26, and 27. They are located at 28, 24, and 20 Broadview Road, Amagansett. These are undisturbed woodland lots adjacent to green space on the bluff in Mattapique Bay between Alberts and Barnes Landing. The property is within the Suffolk County Pine Barrens, a scenic area of statewide significance, and a Taconic Estuary Program critical natural resource. Therefore, they meet this criteria.
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Roll call, please, Joe.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilman Lees.
Aye.
Councilwoman Overby.
I have to recuse myself because I am a member of the association for the Broadview Association, but I hope you've all received a letter from the Broadview Association saying that they support this purchase.
Councilman Fragman.
No.
Supervisor Vance, go ahead.
Aye. And I just want to state, I know Mr. Hood wanted maybe some discussion about this property. And I think from my standpoint, and I can only speak for myself, this property represents 50% of the remaining undeveloped coastal bluff in Amagansett. This is a unique type of a habitat. As we discussed on Tuesday, with the adoption of a management plan, protecting pieces of property in large areas, contingent, contiguous rather, with the coastal region means that certain types of wildlife have the opportunity to nest or reproduce. We've been blessed to have bald eagles nesting in the woodlands in Amagansett. This is prime habitat for such a nesting site in the future. There are very few opportunities where these birds could nest unmolested, and even a single house on this property would probably foreclose the property as a potential nesting site for them. They need a certain amount of buffer, and in many cases, scenic easements that are already on properties are not enough of a buffer. We know that house size, particularly in this area, would be a significant development. I think on these properties, you probably could build under the code a 14 or 15,000 square foot house, and certainly an 8 or 10,000 square foot house, and all of the amenities that might go with that and the activity level would pretty much foreclose that as a possibility. So I think because of its contiguous nature to the bay and nearby other reserve areas, that this is a great acquisition. And I think the price, because of the contribution of the neighboring property owner, means that we can acquire it at a rate that's below the appraised value. And I think that's important as well.
And if I could just add, so, David, I've heard you, speak publicly about this property and your objections to it. So I walked the property and I'm glad I had a chance to walk that property. And there's significant investment in that area by the town, the Nature Conservancy, and the association. And as the supervisor said, it's a natural habitat for wildlife. There's tidal wetlands and freshwater wetlands there. And that's why I voted in support of the acquisition.
For myself, just to add, I appreciate your language and your wording about public access to that area, and specifically along the shoreline in that area, which is a long, deep history. When I was on the zoning board for the reconstruction of the dock, I made sure we provided a passing way easement on that property and make sure you can go under or over the dock. That we can continue working on that with the homeowners association in the years future. I hope we can sort of reverse what was unfortunately done nearly 100 years ago. I think this purchase is within the tact of Dennis and Bell to preserve the lands, looking and reading what the bylaws are for those properties. You want to protect trees. If you want to protect trees of a certain caliber, particularly the holly trees, I think this actually would do more of it, particularly the woodlands also. I think there's good value to it. But I appreciate your comments about public access, David.
I don't agree with the board on this. I don't think it does. I don't think this purchase is going to do much for public access at all. The bluffs are largely protected by existing scenic easements. The price is high. It's $9 million. And I don't see that it affords the town or town residents a significant amount of additional protection. I too thought I heard Peter indicate that this was over the Stony Hill Aquifer in the west.
I did not make that statement.
I heard you deny it. Just saying, I heard that too. It looks to me like the main beneficiary of this transaction is the adjacent neighbor, frankly, who had a difficult time placing a very large house on his lot, and it's therefore, within 30 feet of the property line. And it just seems like a very high price to pay. The bluffs are threatened by erosion, and the main mechanism to protect the bluffs has already been in place on this property in the form of a 150-foot easement, which is going to keep activity away from the bluffs. So I think $9 million is a high price to pay, and it just seems like the neighboring property owner gets more of the benefit than the town does. It's 90 feet above the beach, don't see much of a public access possibility here, and I think we have other priorities for that kind of money. I'd rather see some water quality improvement elsewhere.
I believe you misstated the cost of the town, Jeff. It's not.
Well, the total
Cost of the town might be important to mention.
It's $6 million with a $3 million contribution by the owner, which produces a pretty hefty tax break to the owner as well. I think most of the benefits here go to the neighboring property owner, not to the town.
We understand your position.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2021-833. This is for Walker and Graziano. This authorizes the CPF acquisition and amend the 2021 Management and Stewardship Plan. Once again, we have this public hearing on June 17, 2021. This will be for the purchase from the purported owners, Joseph and Nancy Walker and Salvatore Graziano. Location is 28, 24, and 20 Broadview Road in Kansas. Suffolk County Tax Map 300-104-2-25, 26, and 27.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I recuse myself.
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilman Weeks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Yocum.
Recuse.
No.
Vice Mayor Escobedo.
Aye. Passed.
My turn, sorry. I offer Resolution 2021-834, authorize sales subject to permissive referendum, the Manor House condominiums. Very pleased that we can now get to this part of our affordable housing and the Manor House condominiums. At a meeting therefore held on July 15th, duly adopted a resolution subject to permissive referendum authorizing the town to sell the following units in the premises known as the Manor House condominiums at 181 Acquabonic Road, East Hampton. This will allow authorizing the supervisor to execute any and all documents necessary to convey title to the same and pay any reasonable costs associated with the sale. And we listed the 12 owners of the properties that will receive proceeds.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
Resolution 2021-835 is a payout upon retirement of Joanne Powell. Again, another 30-plus year employee. We are missing our institutional knowledge here, at least in the planning department and also with Dean Hamilton. Joanne has retired from her full-time employment as town planning director and the planning department effective June the 18th, 2021. Audit time records indicate that she has an accrued vacation time balance of 1,210.3 hours and an accrued sick personal time balance of 1,408.8 hours. It is resolved that the finance office be authorized to issue a check through payroll from the appropriate payroll account for accrued vacation time of $59,038.61, accrued sick personal time $68,718.89, and prorated longevity of $1,512.50 for a gross total of $129,270 payable to Joanne Powell as a final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. And Joanne, we wish you the best in your retirement. Congratulations, and thank you for all your service to the town.
And already missed. So, Resolution 2021-836 is budget modification and sanitation, moving from one line subcontractor costs of $11,971 to budget line motor vehicle repairs and supplies in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
Resolution 2021-837 is to accept an undertaking and security for urban renewal parcel 98 in EH-32B. This is for Miguel Navarez, and it is Suffolk County map. I don't have an address. Suffolk County map number 300-136-6-7.2. The amount is in a cashier's check of $11,100 issued by Chase.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
Resolution 2021-838 is to release security for a 280A assignment on 11 Stevens Road. Parcels located on non-town highways outside the town's urban renewal plan are required to perform certain road work to assure that the access to the property be improved and is adequate. And this is the applicant is Christine Ryder for Bellissimus Cinque LLC at 7 Stevens Road in Montauk, and the cashier's check is for $5,000.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021-839 is to accept bid number EH21-026 for a home renovation at 19 Joshua Edwards Court. It's going to Greenway USA LLC is the low bidder. Combined total for the renovation is in financial impact will be $64,400.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021-840 is a budget modification in the airport for expenses related to airport maintenance, removing money from budget line appropriated surplus to budget line subcontractor costs in the amount of $21,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021-841 is also a budget modification in the airport. It deals with the sale of aviation fuel, and it increases the budget line in the amount of $1,008,000, and it increases the expenditure budget line for aviation fuel in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021-842 is to increase the cap for Cooley LLP as our outside airport counsel. They were retained back in 2021. Legal and expenses were authorized not to exceed $200,000, and the town board has determined that an increase in the cap and the expenditures is not required for matters that are still pending on the airport, and the legal fees shall be paid out of a budget line in the airport outside professional and an not to exceed $300,000.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, that's carried. 843 is to appoint traffic control officer to the East Hampton Town Police Department, Charlie Indrova, and that is an hourly rate of $14.25, effective July 16th.
Second.
Aye. Aye, that's carried. 844 is paid out on retirement for Bernard. And this was for a gross total payout of $88,987.05.
I'll second it, and we miss him already as well.
Yes, he is. I miss him very much. He's been one of the persons that I met in town board, the farthest in my past, one of the first guys I met.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried, and yes, we wish Len the very best in his retirement. It's been a huge asset to the town, especially in the last decade, coming after the financial crisis, and helped the town get a strong footing, which we maintain to this day. So the next resolution is 2021-835, payout upon resignation of James Negro, who is gross amount of $4,220.11.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, that's carried. Resolution 846 is to authorize the acquisition of Macalina Street. Ellen Street.
Macarena? Glad we don't have to say that name.
The total financial impact of that is $5,000.
Second.
Aye. And that purchase is going to be used for.
Last. All right, that's the carry. 47 is budget modification of the ordinance enforcement department, and that is moving 3,000 from travel and 10,000 part-time salary, or excuse me, 20,000 part-time salaries to motor vehicles repairs and the amount of 3,000 overtime, 20,000.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, that's carried. 848 is budget modification of the natural resources department. And this is for funding for the Route 27 rest stop, non-point source pollution abatement project. This will transfer $50,000 from grant to George Pond Rest Stop project. Same amount.
Second.
Aye. Aye, that's very good. Thank you, Friends of George Pond as well for looking down to 849 is a budget modification for the joint fuel facility. This is to increase services other governments, Village of East Hampton, in the amount of $33,600, and from the town of East Hampton, town departments, $126,400 for a total amount in fuel purchases of $160,000.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 850 is to retain Elkhorn Plain Associates Incorporated, 3 Mile Harbor Marina electrical upgrades. So that should be paid a lump sum of $17,600 for design and $10,900 for construction support services for a total not to exceed $28,000.
Second.
$20,500. Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 851 is to retain Elkhorn Plain Associates Incorporated, Hillwhite Road program. That is for $26,000 for design, permitting work, $12,300 for construction support services for a total not to exceed $38,300.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Aye, passed and carried. 852 is notice of proposal, George Pond, Route 27 Rest Stop Stormwater Abatement Technical Design, RFP, EH 2021-105. Proposals available July 15th, 2021, and due back August 12th, 2021.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Aye, passed and carried. 853 is accept bid EH Sag Harbor 21901. This is HVAC repairs, service, and installation. Plus medical contractors. This is East Hampton Town Board, Sag Harbor Unified School District, Union, USFD.
Should be UFSD.
Yeah.
Union Free School.
It should be. That USFD, Union Free School District Cooperative solicited bids, and that is in the amount of $31,132.
Second is amended.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, passed and carried. 854 is to accept bid EH 21-027, supply and delivery of auto parts 2021, Advanced Stores Company Incorporated, DBA Advanced Auto Parts, Grade A Petroleum, Morgan Auto Supply Incorporated, and Fleet Pride Incorporated.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 855 is to accept proposal Drew Bennett Professional Services, Springs Library ADA modifications. I spoke about this at liaison report on Tuesday, and this is for $6,000 for task 1 and not to exceed $3,000 for task 2. Basically, this is to improve the Springs Library to be ADA compliant with regards to its access and bathroom.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, passed and carried. 856 is to approve road repairs for North Surfside Avenue, whereas the highway superintendent, Steve Lynch, has inspected North Surfside Avenue and found the road is not in the highway system, but determined that emergency repairs are necessary to allow for emergency vehicle access, and therefore be resolved. The town board hereby approves emergency maintenance of North Surfside Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 857 is to authorize legal action against the owners of 4 South Elmwood Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move to enter into an exec session to discuss the town's litigation strategy in the case of Sunrise Title, to discuss the acquisition of real property, and to receive advice from counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Should like to reconvene at 2 o'clock. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
2 p.m. Very good. I'll send the link.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, be well.